All right, guys, we're here with episode 3 of Curious Conversations with Matt. Today, I got joining me Martin Mackay, and he is the CRO of Versa Networks. Martin, how are you?
Matt, I'm really good. I'm talking to you from a very cold but sunny New York City. Delighted to be with you this afternoon.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining me today. And how cold is it up there in New York? In the Big X?
It's difficult to say, but I think there's quite a wind chill factor as well. So I reckon it's, as we would say in the UK, it's around 5 to 7 degrees. So probably low to mid 50s, something like that.
Okay, so not too shabby.
Not too shabby, but at least the sun is shining and it's not raining right now.
That's good. You can get a little tan going in the window there. So Martin, let's go ahead and dive right in. Who is Martin Mackay? Like who are you? I know this is a loaded question, but let's try to keep it short.
Yeah, well, that's quite an interesting question to kick off. I guess ultimately I could be defined in 3 ways. The first is sort of right at the heart of my character is pragmatism. I'm a pragmatist, Matt, so I like getting things done, working with great people, and winning. But I do that with a very pragmatic view of the world. Secondly, I guess I'm quite an international guy. I've lived in 5 countries. If you go back to the dawn of time, my major was in modern languages, so I speak French and Spanish pretty much as if I was from France or Spain. And, I've tended to, work internationally all of my career. And then finally, I would like to think that I'm pretty straightforward. I'm pretty direct. And I'd like to think that right at the heart of everything I do is integrity.
I respect that. I think integrity goes a long way with everything that you have to do. And that's not with it. It's professionalism. That's personalism too.
I think so. Those people who know me well know that I enjoy, aphorisms. One of my favorites is tell the truth because it's easier to remember what you said.
Awesome. Well, I noticed you did have a bit of an accent there, and you said, as you guys say in the UK. So, how long were you in the UK for, and when did you come here to the States?
Born in the UK. I live in London. I calculated recently that I think I've been to the US in my career about 200 times. So when you start to add up the amount of time that means I've spent on an airplane, it's pretty frightening. But it also means that I really enjoy working, working in the US. I really enjoy the US culture. I feel great over here. I've had a lot of success working for US companies, but I'm actually based in London. So I'm the global CRO for Versa Networks, but I do that job out of London, which is not a bad place to be because in the morning you pick up with Asia Pac, during the day with EMEA, and then in the evening it's the US. Now that does tend to mean that it's 24/7.
I would assume so.
It's quite a good place to be. But I do actually live in London. My wife is American and I have lived all over the world, so I guess my accent, has probably drifted into something that's pretty mid-Atlantic these days.
I would just call that what's that called? The prime meridian language.
Yeah, exactly.
That.
I think that's a good that's a good term. But I was born and bred in the UK.
Awesome. Well, we're very fortunate to have you here in the States part-time, as long as you're racking up those sky miles, right?
Yeah, the other challenge is that I have to be quite careful about the number of days I spend in the US each year. Otherwise, Uncle Sam comes calling, and it's not straightforward. Actually, Matt, this will entertain you. I have a spreadsheet that calculates how many days I can be in the US, but I have to pay federal taxes. So I try to avoid that, particularly as I say, my wife is American. So if I can stay off Uncle Sam's radar screen from a tax point of view, that's a good thing.
Well, we hope so. All right. So kicking it off strong today, being a leader and having abundance of success like yourself, give the listeners, a little insight on, everyday tasks that you have to perform. I guess let's start off with what does your morning routine look like? What time do you get up? How does the success story look there?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I guess I am an early riser, and I try to work out 4 or 5 times a week. I will be in the gym at between 6 and 6:30. We have a gym that's quite local to the apartment where we live in London. So I'll be in the gym, 3 times a week, between 6 and 6:30 for an hour. And we'll try probably to run 10K on the weekends, etc. So, try at my age to keep the middle-aged spread off. But what I will typically do is, given my job, I have, let's say, a tsunami of email overnight.
I'm
So
sure.
you try to clear that out. One of the core principles that I try to abide by is that I know that my team, and I'm fortunate enough to work with some fantastic leaders who we brought into Versa over the last year. My job is to be responsive, right? My team can't afford to wait for even hours sometimes for an answer for help or for a deal approval, etc. So I try to be very tuned into being responsive. But over and above, early morning cranking through email, having tried to raise the sweat in the gym, and bought a cappuccino from my favorite coffee shop on route home from the gym. I really feel as though I've got two primary jobs. The first is to spend as much time as I can with my team, because that's the most important time that I have. Just working through problems, issues, deal structures, deal reviews, etc. But secondly, of course, the best part of my job is spending time with customers and partners, spending it externally. So I try to devote as much time as possible during the day to that. And I'm lucky enough that it gets pretty varied, because I can be talking to a customer in Asia Pac in the morning, or a business partner. I can then be working with the European team, and European business is at different levels of maturity. We've got pretty strong growing business in the UK. We're doing really well thanks to leadership in service providers, but our presence in Germany and other parts of Southern Europe is very nascent. So again, that's a challenge. And then obviously, as you move into the afternoon and the US comes on stream, the US, we're my role is slightly different there, because we've already got very strong leadership. So it's either supporting them, or it's ultimately, using my title to help them get hired in an account. But the morning routine, as I say, I tend to kick off with exercise as much as I can, because that sets me up for what is invariably quite a long day.
Well, it sounds like, just answering emails, being responsive, like you said, it sounds like a workout within itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I will vary what I will do in the gym, but the favorite pastime of mine is to pound the exercise bike, because then I can multitask.
There you go. Hop on that Peloton, baby.
Exactly. You said it.
So, touching on that, I was going to say, what was I just about to say? It just totally slipped my mind.
This is where I show my prowess as a leader and cover for you, right? By thinking about what you could be wanting to ask me next.
I know. Oh, here's what I was going to say. That's perfect segue. I wasn't sure if you were even going to make the show today, being on the podcast today, because you told me that you had to be with a customer, and I think that's so that you prioritize your customers.
I would always prioritize customers. As it turned out, the customer meeting took place earlier in the day, so I was able to carve out the time, and so delighted to be here. But yeah, I always say to the team, we have any number of internal meetings on a weekly basis. We try to limit those, but there are sort of leadership calls. We do, as deal reviews, and then there'll be any number of issues that I've got to work through. But I always say to the team, customers, partners, prioritize those, because they're our lifeblood, right? That's how we're growing the business. You discussed in the previous episode with Kelly and Kumar, the core tenets of our culture, the customer centricity, customer obsession, and we obviously reflect that in our behavior. So always prioritize customers.
Awesome. Well, how long have you been in the tech industry? Because I saw you were at Accenture doing consulting a while back too. So like, what made you want to transition into, I guess, Versa Networks?
A while back, yes, you could say that. But not for
Before, before I was
not,
born.
I'm, oh, I'm sure. I'm not sure I should admit this, Matt, but this is my 34th year. So I started as a consultant with Anderson Consulting, as they were at the time, which dates me in January 1989. And I thought I was going to be a consultant to change the world. Actually, what they did was they made me a computer programmer. But, that was sort of serving my apprenticeship. And then quite early on, I got headhunted into an enterprise software company that was looking to expand its consulting base. And so I was in the consulting side of the world, and then was the leader of the consulting organization for that software company in France for a while. That was probably the first 6 or 7 years of my career. But then I pivoted into a great period of time, 8 years at a company called PeopleSoft, which was an amazing success story. Eventually exited to Oracle, but was a remarkable company. It was the forerunner of Workday, which, of course, the same founders created Workday, created PeopleSoft, and that's where when I moved into the marketing side of things, and then the sales leadership side of things. So I've been in the technology industry, I hate to tell you this, as I say, 34 years. And the reason that I've stayed in it so long is really simple, is that every couple of years you have to reinvent yourself. If I start talking to you about what I did 34 years ago, you're going to look at me like I'm some sort of senile grandfather, right? Coding COBOL. And
Yeah, what I can, for sure.
by the way, COBOL is still incredibly widely used. So, maybe in my dotage, I'm going to brush up my COBOL skills and go and make a fortune, correcting banking programs, etc. But, if you look at the technology that we now deliver to customers, the complexity around our SASE solutions, what we've built with our secure SD-WAN and our security capability, I mean, that just reflects the incredible transition that the technology industry has been through. So I started off in the mainframe era, moved into the PC era, moved into client server, early days of internet, e-commerce, and now where we are at Versa, where I've been CRO for about 15 months.
Well, congratulations on that. So can you touch on the SASE and SD-WAN? What is that in pertaining to Versa Networks?
Yeah, I think, the way to describe it, the way that I talk about what we do is, we can summarize it as protect, connect, simplify. But I really look at it from the customer's point of view and say, I think strategically, customers are wrestling with three key issues. The first is the user experience that their employee base has, particularly post-pandemic, where work from anywhere is just a norm, right? But I think, first of all, the user experience. Secondly is, how do you then protect the user workload's data? And thirdly, how do you do that at an ever-decreasing TCO? And that's fundamentally what we do. Our secure SD-WAN is going to provide that management of network traffic, management of the user experience better than any other. Then our security capabilities, so if you like the SSE in SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, that's going to protect that network infrastructure and protect the enterprise. And then the fact that all of this is operating on the same operating system, the proverbial single pane of glass, and is providing incredible power and flexibility within that single management console. That is simplifying the security application topology that enterprises are wrestling with, and it's by definition reducing cost. So that's fundamentally what we do.
So you're bringing every category into one. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And it becomes incredibly powerful. And to some extent, when we describe that, we've had a heritage as a secure SD-WAN vendor. We've expanded in the last couple of years into security. people may look at us a little askance and say, well, how can you bring the same security posture, depth of security capability that maybe some of the better known security vendors have? And, the answer is, well, let's prove it to you. And we can give customers at least the same, if not better security posture at a lower cost and provide that outstanding user experience. And I think that those are right at the heart of what businesses are wrestling with. You talk to our customers about why they do business with Versa. There's the culture of our, customer obsession. There's the fact that they feel future-proofed in terms of the innovation we deliver. You talk really in depth about that with Kelly and Kumar. But I think it's also this ability to manage the network, manage security, and do that at a significantly reduced cost. That's right at the heart of the Versa value proposition. I think that's really, particularly with the sort of current macroeconomic environment, that really resonates with customers.
And what would you say to, I guess, the idea of having all your eggs in one basket to people that don't?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point that some customers are going to say, you know what, Versa, you are best known for your secure SD-WAN capability. That's great. We're going to layer out the technologies in place. And my attitude is that's fine. That's your choice. We offer, different ways in which you can adopt Versa. Over time, what we've seen is that customers look at, our technology and say the benefits, the cost-saving benefits. We've trusted Versa with our network for the last 3 or 4 years. The cost-saving benefits of extending into the next-gen firewall, into internet access management, into private access, zero trust, etc. We're prepared to go down that route because we've seen that we can trust Versa as a critical business partner. But others will say, look, we're fine to segment, and I think it just becomes, what is at the heart of our overall philosophy, which is customer choice.
I like that a lot. So it sounds like, you, Kelly, and Kumar all have the same universal term as customer obsession and trust. Jude?
Yeah, 100%. I say to the team, the way, when we're dealing with customers, look at it from their point of view. Look at everything from the customer's point of view. You've got a production down situation. Probably the customer who we're interacting with is being screamed at by the CEO. Why is one of my stores down? It's costing me hundreds of thousands of dollars now, right? So, the customer's putting us under pressure. Not that I should hasten that ever happens with Versa, Matt, of course, but, look at it from the customer's point of view. Think about what the pressure the customer's facing, and then, respond accordingly. And, the other way I've been taught by some outstanding leaders over the years is, sometimes our job is to take a bullet for the customer, right? And we'll do that willingly because it'll show the strength of relationship. But I think that, any customer doing business with Versa will know that if there's a problem, Versa will not rest until it's solved. And then I think we're pretty good, perhaps arguably best in class, at learning from that and making sure that it doesn't happen again.
Well, that's good to hear. Veering away from the customer point of view, just for a minute here, you've held 9 leadership roles, correct? Well, 10 including Versa. So that automatically tells you, you're not tied down to one company for the rest of your life. So I guess, being not tied down to one company for your life in order to create that passion and that success, would you agree that you don't always need to be tied down to just the one company? Because you said you have to keep growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I mean, if you look at my career, I've had a balance because, I've had a couple of fairly long stints with companies. And then actually what's happened for the most part over those 9 or 10, and I haven't counted, but those 9 or 10 examples that you give, ranging from, chief executive officer for private equity backed, relatively small businesses in the UK, or international leadership positions with large US companies. What's happened? Well, obviously a couple of times, I have to admit that, I've fallen out with the company, with my boss, and we've agreed to part ways. But most of the time in my career, actually, the company's been acquired. And for various different reasons, it's been right for me to move on. I always think that my success over and above hiring and working with outstanding people my motivation, if you like, comes from passionately believing in the product or service that I deliver to customers. And so I would say that every one of the companies that I've worked for, I believe that if the customer hasn't chosen our technology or service, the customer's making a mistake with their business. That's probably been the unifying factor. Whether it's been a couple of the smaller companies I've run in the UK or a couple of the larger companies that I've worked for. That's always been how I've approached things. I think the days of a 25-year career in one company are probably over. Although that said, I met with a partner yesterday, and one of the people I was with had been with the same company for 37 years, and I respect that because I'm sure that he's reinvented himself on a very regular basis. You look at Kelly, who was at Cisco for 16, 17 years in a whole variety of different leadership positions. It's very possible to learn and grow in that context as well. Circumstances have just been that even if I join a company with the intention to be there for the next 5, 7, 10 years, it hasn't worked out. And what I try to do is learn from every experience. As I like to say, make new mistakes, not the same old. But I do think that the core unifying factor across all of those leadership opportunities that I've had is that fundamentally I believed in, there's been a synchronicity between the company's value proposition and the product or service that we deliver to customers and the core values that the company has and how I like to operate.
I respect your motivation in, having that drive just to continue to grow and keep growing and redefining yourself. But what would you say about, being tied to a company for 25 years? Like why is that no longer a factor? Why is that? Well, why are people wanting to grow and grow and grow and not be tied down?
Each of us has got our own motivations, so it's not for me to speak about anyone else. But what I would say is that the famous analogies with the shark, that the shark's got to keep moving forward or the shark dies, right? And I would like to think that I'm not a shark, but I always want to be moving forward and learning and developing. As it's turned out, Matt, that hasn't been with a single company in my career, but I really respect people who've done 25 years. If circumstances have been different, I could have done 25 years with Anderson Consulting, etc. I joined that company with the ambition to be the youngest partner in the firm's history. It didn't work out, but that was the ambition. Then, circumstances have been slightly different. I could easily have done 25 years with Accenture and had a very successful career. I like the variety that I've had, but other people have no doubt had satisfying careers in that, with longevity of service. I think that's becoming less and less common. I think it's becoming less and less common for 2 or 3 reasons. The first is companies get acquired, as I've said, and you may or may not choose to stay, or that option may not be open to you. Secondly, in the technology industry, innovation is right at the heart of what we do, and so opportunities arise all the time. You think, actually, this could be a good place for me to go take my experience and skills that I've learned maybe at a large global multinational and go and apply it to a smaller opportunity where maybe there's greater wealth creation opportunity, or maybe there's a chance to be the proverbial bigger fish in smaller ponds. So, I make their value judgments on how other people have managed their careers, but it's worked for me, I guess.
Well, I like that a lot, especially, finding your true self-identity and what you want to do. And I think there's chapters to everyone's life, and you're not just tied down to, say, one chapter or one page. You have to keep progressing and move on with the story. Even come out with another book, create a saga. So
right. Exactly.
So what's your definition of success?
That's a really interesting question. And, some people will look at it in terms of wealth, others will look at it in terms of sort of achievement. I think my definition of success is the impact that I've had on people. I look at the great teams I've worked with and the friends that I've made in the industry. And, I'm still very much in touch with a lot of outstanding people I've worked with over the years. I go back to, for example, my time running the Asia business for CM Technologies. We still have a thriving WhatsApp group of the leadership team. I go back to just more recently, my 2.5 years or so running TruePoint in EMEA. I've got very close friends there. So I think it's the impact that I've had on people, and as a consequence, the impact that I've had on the business through those people. But that's my definition of success.
And once again, creating those connections, creating those relationships, building on them.
Yeah, that's really important to me. As I'm talking to people about joining Versa, I'm as much interested in their character and as their experience and their character, how they're going to represent us in the marketplace, how they're going to interact with customers. And I have what I call the Ulaanbaatar test. The Ulaanbaatar, as I'm sure you know, is the capital of Mongolia. And I was once stuck there.
I did not know that.
It's a really interesting place, but I was once stuck there by Air China, not flying us out, for 4 or 5 days with 2 colleagues. And at the end of those 4 or 5 days, quite an interesting experience. We had a conference there, and then we could fly out, we couldn't fly out. We became friends. 2 of my team, but we became very good friends. And that's sort of the test that I apply, which is, after an hour and a half's conversation with someone about joining Versa, would I be comfortable being stuck with this person in Ulaanbaatar for 4 or 5 days? And if the answer is no, and that's a difficult value judgment after an hour and a half, but if the answer is no, then he or she doesn't
fit.
Yeah.
Fit. I've never actually looked at it that way. So I think that's interesting.
I think, look, obviously, as we bring fantastic people on board, we're looking at experience, capability, track record, etc. And those things are, in many ways, given. It's much more important to me about character and behavior. As I say, I just have this one test that I like to apply, which is purely subjective, and it's difficult to define what makes someone the right sort of person to be stuck with for 5 days, literally in out of Mongolia. But it is you sort of recognize it when you see it.
There you go. So where do you see, I guess, cybersecurity in the next 5 years? I mean, technology is ever adapting and increasing, and we have new tech being introduced to us every single day.
Yeah, well, I think there are a couple of really interesting things. First of all, it's going to become increasingly important because, unfortunately, the bad guys are not going away, right? And the bad guys are not going away because what they do, it's profitable, right? Ransomware attacks increasing, etc. They make money, and unfortunately,
And they're smart too.
and they're very smart, and they're very organized, right? As I like to say, if you look at some of the cyber actors, they're as organized as any major global corporation. The difference is if you, I say this tongue in cheek, but if you miss your quarter, you end up at the bottom of the boulder.
So would you say that ransomware is the main threat to?
I think it is, but I think the other really interesting technology development, and none of us really knows what the impact is going to be, is quantum computing, which is not yet ready for prime time, but it probably is going to be in 2 or 3 years. And, one of the impacts of quantum computing is that the computing power that will be generated will be enough to break today's algorithms, today's security. So, where I cut my teeth, arguably in security, with a company called Versa, and the main company behind the SSL certificate, which is still primarily the way with which we secure, internet transactions. The security algorithms today, it's almost impossible break the current computing power, but quantum computing is going to enable those to be broken very quickly. So, that's going to put weapons in the hands of the bad guys that we probably have to fight, but it's also going to enable us to protect in a whole different way. So I think quantum computing is going to have a big impact on the cybersecurity industry over the next 3 to 5 years, but we haven't really defined exactly what that will be. But there's no doubt that the basics of, protecting the edge, obviously the enterprise perimeter has collapsed completely, so protecting the edge, staying on top of threats, protecting your infrastructure against DDoS attacks, etc., and protecting against ransomware. These things are going to remain very prevalent in the short to medium term.
Okay. That's the first I've ever even heard of quantum computing, was from what you just told me right there. So I'm going to have to do some more research on that.
Do some research on it. It's absolutely fascinating what's been done. I've got a couple of VC friends who are investing in early stage quantum computing plays, and who knows how it's going to turn out. But in simple terms, and you've got to remember that you're talking to a guy with a major in modern languages. So I can't hold a candle to Kumar or Kelly from a technology point of view. But what I do understand is the impact of technology, and the impact of quantum computing, I think, is going to be phenomenal. And a big area is in the cybersecurity, both for good and potentially exacerbating threats as well.
Do you think there's a way to get ahead of that?
Well, I think that what's going to have to happen is that as quantum computing, this dramatically increased computing power comes on stream, that equally the good guys, and Versa is definitely on the side of the angels, I think will be there taking advantage of that technology to protect enterprises, protect our customers, in the same way that we've done today with the current technology landscape.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what Versa has to do whenever quantum computing comes striking.
You bet. And of course, today you layer in the whole impact of AI and machine learning as well. I think that's just going to accelerate. That's a whole other trend that we haven't really touched on. But that's, we're integrating that into our capabilities, and I think that's going to become more and more prevalent.
Artificial intelligence is definitely for another day. 100%. So if you could have coffee, bourbon, a glass of wine, whatever your drink of choice is, with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Because
and go ahead and mention what drink you'd have.
Oh, I'd probably drink old fashioned or red wine.
There you go. A maraschino cherry in there.
Exactly. I would, on the sporting front, experience as a colleague, my big passion is cricket. So I might well want to go back to a couple of the really famous cricketers in the 1930s. The best ever cricketer in Australia, Don Bradman, would be fascinating to talk to. But on a slightly more serious note, my sort of, and this might have people throwing rotten fruit at their PCs, but my sort of political awareness. I grew up in the 70s in the UK. Margaret Thatcher came to power in 1979, and combination of her vision, her leadership, her determination. She was by no means universally popular, but I guess we all look at the impact of people based on her own personal circumstances, and what she did, it might be for the UK, that I was able to benefit from was phenomenal. And so spending a couple of hours with Margaret Thatcher would be fascinating. You've got to remember, she started her career as a politician in the late 50s, where the House of Commons in the UK, to the best of my knowledge, didn't even have separate bathrooms for women. It was phenomenal what she achieved. So I sort of grew up as a Thatcherite, as it's called, as Thatcher's children, and a Thatcher's child. So I would love to spend time with Margaret Thatcher.
Women in power, baby. That's what it's about.
Absolutely. She was phenomenal. And the UK, to our credit, we've had 3 female prime ministers. Okay, one only lasted 44 days. but
Hey, she was still a prime minister.
still a prime minister. So, but Margaret Thatcher, in my mind, she was a polarizing figure, but she had a bigger impact on UK, set UK up for, arguably 15 years of prosperity. So she was pretty impressive.
So what, I guess that's good to hear. I wonder if, say you were to host a podcast and you were to have Margaret Thatcher on there, what would be your first question that you would ask her?
I'd ask her two things. I'd say, what are you most proud of? And what's your biggest regret?
Well, then I'm going to ask you those questions.
Yeah, there you go. That's great. Most proud of. It's a really good question. From a professional point of view, I guess, well, hopefully the best moments to come with Versa. But I guess today I'm really proud of the team that we built actually, I guess with CA Technologies in Asia Pac, where we took it from, with that team, we took it in a low or almost zero growth company. We were growing new business by 30% at the end before we were acquired by Broadcom. We had an amazing team spirit, and that was a great experience. And then personally, I could say my children, but I guess my best memories that were most proud is marrying my second wife, which 2015 in Vegas. And, if you're lucky enough, yeah, exactly. But if you're lucky enough to find, the right person, even later in life, then that's phenomenal. That's happened to my wife and me. So I guess that makes me pretty proud as well. She's an American citizen, by the way, but to one.
That's so awesome. I love whenever we talk about, having that support system behind you, especially having your best friend, your wife, right alongside fighting the battles with you and being there for you, holding your hand.
Absolutely. And I've been lucky enough, obviously, I listened to your discussion with Kelly. I've been lucky enough to get to know Kelly's wife, who's a wonderful person, and my wife and she become good friends as well. So, Kelly's an amazing leader to work with. He counted as a friend as well as obviously my boss. And, you can tell a lot by someone from his or her partner. And, Ramina is a fabulous woman. So it's, yeah, you're absolutely right. I heard the passion in your voice in last week's episode as well, Matt. So I was resonating with that.
I agree. And I think, the people you surround yourself with really defines who you are and who you're going to be. So I'm glad well, wait, first, what's your biggest regret?
Oh, biggest regret. Well, actually, I'm pretty lucky that I tend not to be someone who looks back. But I will tell you one funny story very briefly, that my first CEO role, I'd been about 3 or 4 weeks into this company, and I got called by my former boss who said, okay, I've just taken this role. I need you to come. You're part of the team. It doesn't matter what you do. You come to marketing, biz dev, alliances, sales. You're just going to be part of the leadership team. And I said, look, I've just taken this turnaround job as CEO, stepped away from being a VC. We'd invest in this company. I'm now running it. I really think I can turn it around and exit and make it successful. And 2 years later, I took that business into administration, so Chapter 11 in your terms, and he sold his for 430 million euros.
Wow.
So in terms of, I don't look back, but that's one of the sliding doors moments. I guess that would have been that would have set life on perhaps slightly different course.
Hey, there's a reason you have a rear view mirror in your car. It's to look back. It's to look back, but you're always moving forward.
And I don't use it. The other one was in 1999. I was offered the CMO job at PeopleSoft, which would have meant relocating to the US. And my first wife and I had just had our first child, and she not unreasonably said, "I don't want to move to a foreign country where I know no one, and you're going to be working 24/7 and never there." As things have turned out, I should have taken the job and left her. But
all right. Okay, so speaking on that, just touching on that to the second wife, those movie scenes where you bring a girl home to meet your parents, and they show you some naked baby photos or share a funny story. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Oh, give me a story that your parents would share about you.
Oh goodness. I guess it's not my parents. They're both passed on now, but certainly my siblings who are older than me would tell the story of and would produce a photo from somewhere of a time in France. We were on holidays as a family in France, and I was 3 years old, and I was throwing the most almighty tantrum on the beach, screaming and thrashing my arms and legs. But I don't know how long it sustained. They tell me that it was 20 minutes. It was probably only 90 seconds or something. But the things exaggerate over time.
We exaggerate all the time.
They would say that people coming along and just watching me because it was such an exhibition. So that's probably as humiliating as it gets. I try not to behave like that now, Matt, when I'm dealing with the team in forecast calls and they're not telling me what I want to hear. But I guess occasionally one can lapse as well.
Hey, well, I'm assuming that attitude stuck with you. So,
yeah, occasionally, I'd like to think that I don't throw a tantrum, but I guess, sometimes my job is to get a little ferocious with the team if we're not seeing what we need, the behavior that we need. But I always try to, I don't always succeed, I have to admit, but I always try to avoid giving people the excuse to focus on my behavior rather than my message. And sometimes I fail, sometimes, I can be as irascible as anyone. But broadly, I try to say, okay, let's not let the emotion get in the way of what is the key thing we need to correct.
Right. So I guess looking back on, say, a ferocious conversation you had, would you look back and, kind of think maybe I should have toned it down a little bit and see if the message would have been put through more clear?
Absolutely. It very rarely works to shout, frankly. I've done it a couple of times for effect, but yeah, when I do, I regret it because it loses impact, and you learn from it and you move on. I would also like to think that where I'm pretty certain that I've fallen from the standards that I've tried to set myself as a leader, I will say sorry to the people involved. So I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to be vulnerable and to admit I was wrong.
That's important. And I think, as a leader, seeing where you failed and learning from your failures only makes you a better winner.
I think you've nailed it. Exactly.
So what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone starting, in your career or just in general being an entrepreneur?
Well, that's a good question. I would say find someone you trust as a mentor and use that person. I think, I have this philosophy that says we all need a coach, right? You go back, you may have all the natural talents in the world, but you go back to sort of, when Tiger Woods first worked with Bush Harmon, and, what made Tiger Woods the golfer was the coach. And of course, Bush Harmon wouldn't have made me into a world champion golfer. But with that raw talent, that coach was able to shape Tiger's game. And I think, somebody starting out, find someone with the right character experience who can mentor you. I think that's really key. Be open to the advice and suggestions, whilst also, charting your own course.
So do you think that, and anyone can be in a leadership position if you have the right coaching and the right mentor? It doesn't matter where you came from, but
for sure. Yeah. It's a mindset. Leadership's a mindset. And, when I'm talking to people that want to move from an individual contributor position to a leadership position, I talk about one thing. And that's, if you're in an individual contributor position, you're fundamentally being paid to be selfish. Sure, you want to build out great relationships internally to get things done. But fundamentally, particularly in sales, we're asking a sales rep to be selfish because, we want you focused on making your number and making money. When you move to a leadership position, you have to be selfless. You put yourself last. There's a reason the famous book Leaders in Last, right? You've got to be first into battle and last in retreat. You've got to, when there's famine, you've still got to be smiling, even though you go hungrier than the team. And when there's a feast, you let the team feast first. When something's gone wrong, you take the flak, and when something's gone right, you give the team credit. Leadership's not easy, so you've got to have that mindset that says, I'm going to move from that selfish to selfless because the rewards of seeing people grow and successful give me that payback, and that's the mindset you've got to have.
I guess what's a piece of advice you'd give to someone, one small thing, the first step into moving towards that mindset?
It's a philosophy that I would like to think that is ingrained, and I repeat it quite often, as you might have heard, but it is ingrained in me, which is I need to be successful, not right. And so what that means is, don't feel you need to be the smartest person in the room. Don't feel as though you have to, command and control. Don't feel as though you should be threatened if somebody's clearly more talented than you. Celebrate that, because you need to work with people who are better than you and who will be successful. So have the confidence in yourself to surround yourself with people who are more experienced, more talented, and your job as a leader is to shape them and to run interference for them and let them do their job. That's how I've tried to operate as a leader for. Well, I guess I had my first management job in I hate to tell you this, 1991, a while ago.
Well, shit, we can just drop the mic right there. That was perfect. That was awesome. Seriously, I've said the same thing just earlier. You got to surround yourself with the people that are going to make yourself better. And the fact that, you're a leader and even brought that up to me when I said it just makes me feel like I'm moving down the right direction. And anyone else that is experiencing a position where they're at now, where they can change that mindset, I mean, they can do anything they want as long as they dream big.
In time, so I forget which one of the US presidents said it. Might have been Kennedy, but it's that great notion that it's amazing how much can get achieved if no one cares who takes the credit. And I think as a leader, your job is to say it's not about me. I'm there to get results, working with people, through people, and the results and the impact that will speak for themselves, rather than, again, having that selfish mindset, which, by the way, is exactly what you need. If you're a high-performing sales rep, you're focused on serving customers and making a number and making money, and that's great. But again, as a leader, you've got to rethink that, because you're only successful if your people are.
I love talking about this stuff, and I could talk about it for hours, but I'm going to ask one more question, based off what we've been talking about in the past 5 minutes here, is do you think there's a balance between being selfless and being selfish?
As a leader, no. I think the key, you've got to be selfless. I always believe that leadership's a combination of three things, which is ability, integrity, and then actually benevolence. Really leading with kindness. That doesn't mean weakness. You can be very tough, but also think about the impact of people, or the impact of whatever's happening on people. But as a leader, I don't think you can afford an iota of selfishness.
I note it.
I do think the key thing is to be comfortable in your own skin, and that means quite a lot of self-awareness and just willingness to be aware of your faults, because we all have many, but be comfortable.
Like it. All right. So biggest pet peeve. Let's hear it.
Oh, laziness.
Oh,
Laziness. Matt, um, don't be lazy anywhere near me. Um, if you work hard and you show that attitude and that determination, that resilience, you'll get cut a lot of slack by me in terms of results. Obviously, at a certain point, you're going to have different conversation, but attitude is everything. Don't shy away from hard work with me. That's probably the one thing that's going to press buttons that probably will be bad for both parties.
well, you heard it first. Don't be lazy. And I think I don't think being a leader you can afford to be lazy either. I mean,
You can't. It's taxing, right? As I said, coming back to what we were talking about before. I mean, I've really enjoyed the last hour's conversation. It's fantastic, but I would probably go back to 5 or 6 emails where members of my team in whichever geography are really needing help, support, guidance, and my job is to go and give it to them, give them that responsibility. So yeah, the leadership is, as Kelly said, it can be lonely, but it sure as hell, the prerequisite to being a successful leader is hard work.
well, it'll pay off in the end. So,
But it may pay off in monetary terms, but as I say, I come back to what's really important to me, which is the impact on people. And
right.
if I've had positive impact on people, then I can look at myself in the mirror. And where I know I've had a detrimental impact on people, I need to get them correct.
So, if you could go back and give yourself, some tips, say 18 years old, what would you say?
Oh, that's a well, I mean, if I tell you maybe 30 years old, don't turn down that job that I talked about before.
Yeah, you would have been living lavishly.
Yeah, exactly. I would say I think we all think this, but one is probably I wish I had the sort of self-awareness, self-confidence that I would like to think I had at 18. I would probably say, have a bit more trust in yourself, faith in yourself. I would probably say, I mean, I look back over the last, since that time, and it's tell you it's 40 years, but I've been pretty lucky as well. So I feel like things more or less worked out. Had some downsides as well. Maybe I could say something flippant and say this. I should have asked a particular girl out because I know now she would have said yes. Because my friends, I won't name her obviously on this podcast, but yeah, I think it's about self-confidence and self-awareness, just a little bit of guidance there.
I love to tell people you can't be insecure with yourself. You have to be confident and true in who you are. And as long as you are, true to yourself, you're going to find people that are also going to be true to themselves, and you're going to form true relationships. And that's only going to build, your empowerment even more. So
yeah,
I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking with someone yesterday I mentor. I was mentor in a loose sense. I've met him for some time, and he's going for a very big job, and I was helping him with some preparation for it. This is a live situation. Who knows whether he'll get the job or not? He's talented enough to get it. But one of the pieces of advice I gave him was just be authentic. Because you can't. You won't be successful if you're given the job putting a veneer on that isn't you. So be authentic, and if you get the job, fantastic, you'll be successful. And if you don't, it means it's not the right fit.
There's not enough authentic people in this world. There needs to be more.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'd like to be. People working with me, I'd like to think I could be trusted. I'm pretty straightforward.
But I think the message that you provide, or any other leader provides, especially me, is I'd like to find those authentic people and even promote that authenticity within someone so they can pull it out within themselves. In order to do that, you have to get uncomfortable.
That absolutely. And then, if you practice that enough, you're willing to show vulnerability, willing to discuss weakness quite openly because you're confident in yourself, then it sort of becomes a self-fulfilling, it becomes a virtuous circle, if you like.
That vulnerability, though, that becomes your biggest strength.
100%. 100%.
So, what has been your favorite job you've held and why? And don't worry, I'm going to take full responsibility if Kelly and Kumar get out and say Versa Networks, okay?
leave aside Versa Networks. I mean, Versa is a great place to work for a couple of reasons. I'm really privileged to do the job I do. I think, first of all, because of the technology we have, it's relevant to customers. And secondly, because I think that, ultimately the core values that Kumar and Apurva espoused when they founded the company, and Kelly has increased, just revolving around integrity and the customer obsession, but also actually a genuine caring for people. I think that makes it pretty special. And we disagree for sure on how to get to the objective of making Versa massively successful and leaving a legacy, but we all share that binding force. So that's really important. But if I get back, my favorite job, I'm going to come back to something I've referred to before, the CA technologist job, and that was my favorite job for three reasons. One was we lived in Singapore, which is an awesome place to live, and had 2.5 amazing years running Asia Pacific and Japan and learning how to operate in those complex cultures. Secondly, built a fantastic leadership team who all remained friends. And thirdly, and this is really crucial, I had a great boss. I had a boss with whom, he could be pretty tough, but he and I just had a fantastic chemistry. So that was a pretty good combination. I just wish CA Technology had better products.
Yes. Well, hey, I'm glad you had, what I guess, well, I was going to say, I'm glad you had that relationship with your boss, but was the true definition of happiness for you at CA Technologies where you were happy?
Yeah. And I look back at the elements, and we were being successful, despite some of the elements, but I look back at it, it's that combination of, very strong personal situation, living in Singapore with my wife, best friend, phenomenal experience. Secondly, great team working with. Thirdly, people don't leave organizations, they leave people, right? And a bad boss can make your life, however much the rest of your professional life is going well. If you don't have a relationship with your boss, it really is very difficult. And so I could have been in Singapore working with this great team and had a bad relationship with my boss and was sad the whole memory. But 2.5 years, it was great. And that individual is now, chief executive of a private equity backed, really successful company in the tech space. We're still very much in touch. And he's a tremendous leader, somebody I learned a lot from. So, I think it's that combination that you look for, you look out and say, hey, that's a pretty good 2.5 years. But I'm going to say, there's no reason why Versa can't accomplish that. Although I have to say, probably won't match, even though we're very lucky to live in the place we live in central London, it won't match the apartment that we had looking out over Marina Bay in Singapore. That was something as well. That was
Cannot beat the view.
Can't beat.
So what was your favorite part of this episode, and are you excited to see more episodes like it?
Favorite part of this episode was the conversation we had about leadership and the qualities there, for sure. Excited to see more episodes, absolutely. And as you and I discussed, we'll go and suggest a couple of people you can invite on. I applaud you for the series. I hope what I've said has been interesting and engaging. Certainly what Kumar and Kelly said, really interesting and engaging. Obviously, two people I know really well. And so I applaud you for doing this, and just carry on doing it, because I'm going to listen to every episode.
Thank you. I'm here to just learn and just, retain knowledge more and more as I can. And, hearing from technology leaders or leaders itself, I think that's going to develop me into someone I want to, aspire to be one day. So,
well, that's a great ambition. So I look forward to working with you and maybe in a small way contributing to that.
Thank you. Well, one final question before we close out. What's one thing you want to leave the listeners with to hold on to for the rest of their life?
Oh, that's really interesting. I'm going to come back to I think I've said before. I think right at the heart of my character, whether it's made me a good leader or not, or whether it's made me successful or not, just whatever your definition of success is, need to be successful, not right. If you can leave your ego aside and get the best out of people, you're going to get to success, whatever your definition of success. You need to be successful, not right. That's right at the heart of how I try to operate.
All right, guys. Well, that was Martin's 2 cents for you. Martin, why don't you go ahead and close us out with thank you for joining us in Curious Conversations in both French and Spanish. Let's hear it.
OK, d'accord. Plaisir. Bon, merci bien pour ce que vous avez dit, por cette conversación. Fue un plaisir pour moi. ¿Y qué te puedo decir? Que ha sido un gran placer y, bueno, he pasado una hora contigo con muchísimo gusto y gracias a todo el mundo por habernos escuchado.
And thank you for joining Curious Conversations with Matt. Please leave a like and a follow. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the question box below. See what other questions I might bring up for the next episode here. And if you would like, please leave a rating. I'm always here for feedback, so let me know. Thank you again, Martin. I really, really appreciate it, and I loved our conversation we had.
Thanks, Matt. I really enjoyed myself.